Good morning. Welcome back to Start Your Day. It is time for Sharon's Table. So let's bring in the crew, Brittney Cooper, Ameshia Cross, and Candace Kelley. Good morning to you, ladies. I always miss you when we're not together, but we do make up for lost time. Let's get right to it. Candace, let's start with you. The Supreme Court, here we go again, because there's so many things going on that the court needs to take up, but affirmative action is front and center. I'm sure Justice Clarence Thomas will do what he always does to us. He'll disappoint. But I want you to set it up for us properly, legally. What's at stake here?
Well, like you said, there's so many things that they could be listening to out of the thousands of cases that come to their table, but they chose this one. We know why they say they're not political. They are political. The fact that they chose this. We're looking at two cases in different parts of the country that made their way up to the Supreme Court dealing with affirmative action. One case, looking at Harvard University, there was a study done 6 years at Harvard saying that Asian Americans scored higher than every other group, but then they weren't accepted on the same rate. So they are saying that they've been discriminated against Asian Americans. Then go up to the University of North Carolina. They're saying that blacks are overshadowing whites and Asian Americans because they're using affirmative action in order to put them in their seats. So the Supreme Court is really asking the question, do we need to consider race when we get people into college? But as we know, the fact that they even chose it means that those conservatives are ready to pounce and potentially change the law.
And so, Brittney, if Asian American students are being discriminated against, who's taking their spots? Because from what I'm reading, it's legacy students at a high percentage, right? Mom and dad went there, somebody wrote a letter, somebody gave money. So is there anything we can do between now and October? Because Candace is right. Let's drop the facade. It is political. Anything we can do to try to convince some people that they need to uphold affirmative action in this country?
So there are a few things going on that I think are a problem. The first is that this is not a simple case about Asian Americans being discriminated against. I don't think we have to concede the premise. So no one is owed a spot in any university. As I say to my students, you don't own a chair. Your name is not carved into the back of the chair that you're sitting in. Also, we have used one of the things that the 2003-2004 Michigan cases decided about affirmative action was that race could be one factor among many in helping colleges to create diverse environments. That was, in fact, both an affirmation of affirmative action and also a rollback of the way that it had been used in a prior moment. So part of the thing that the Asian American litigants that brought this case, which is not all Asian Americans, are saying is that on the merits, they are better. We've got to ask as a community if test scores actually mean that you are better meritoriously, but also they are coming after Black folks while using the argument of racial discrimination that we pioneered based on our experience, which makes it super perverse. And they're not talking about these white folks who often get in with lower test scores, but have other things that commend them. And so we've got to not concede to the narrative that test scores become the marker. And I think that one of the things we're going to see universities do, which they've already started to do, is to eliminate the use of the SAT, the ACT, all of this stuff as a way to get around this. And so then we can begin to have the real conversation, which is, how do we make college more accessible for all rather than using the SAT, which most research says only predicts your success in college in the first semester? And as I tell my students every spring semester, if you made it this far, then all bets are off. Anybody can make it to the finish line.
Yeah, anybody can make it to the finish line. And shouldn't getting there be about life? And shouldn't universities, Ameshia, be diverse places, freedom of thought, freedom to be and just be heard as well? So what do you think about both the case, because there seems to be one man, one group who's behind a lot of these cases and pushing this agenda?
Absolutely. And this is an agenda that has been pushed for years now. This is not new. I think that to the professor's point, we have to remember that this is honestly the white patriarchal system basically designing a fight against affirmative action and getting a huge assist from a group of Asian Americans. And I think that this goes along with the whole model immigrant theory and a whole bunch of other things that have been perpetuated about them for quite some time. What we are seeing now, time and time again, is that universities are actually scrapping the necessity to utilize SAT scores anyway, even our top universities. What we should be more concerned with is people like Becky, who are literally paying colleges to allow their young people to come in, who are literally going around the system so their students don't have to, their young people don't have to compete at all. We should be more concerned with that. Affirmative action has historically benefited white women more than it has anybody who looks like anyone on this panel. As someone who went to a private university, had a 32 on my ACT, had a 4.0, I was consistently told by white people at my university that I was an affirmative action kid. 100% untrue. I scored higher on my ACT than 98% of the white people at the school I attended. So I think we have to be very real that affirmative action, first and foremost, has not always benefited Black people. But beyond that, we also have to understand that throughout history, we have seen that these SAT scores are not the things that are the top predictors of your college success. It is very vital and important to recognize that, because a lot of students, regardless of their background, end up beasting in college, despite having less than what we consider, high star ratings when it comes to their ACTs.
And Sharon, you know what? If
Yeah.
I can just make one point, and I'm sure that Brittney can attest
Go
to this.
ahead.
Even if you look inside the classrooms now, or look at the college campus at Rutgers where you are, Brittney, I know at Rowan University, if we're talking about affirmative action where the wheels are in motion, I still don't see that many people of color. I mean, unless you're in some type of class or some type of major that deals with African Americans, you don't see that many people of color anyway. So is affirmative action really working in terms of what the numbers that are out there in the world, and the number of students that want to be on a college campus? You don't see that many people of color anyway.
Well, and this is where I want to go, Candace, and I want to stay with you because I always feel like we're being attacked. We're fending off all of these hits. What about the 57% at Harvard and the legacy students? Isn't there anything we should do? I understand what Brittney's saying. Your name is not on the back of the chair, but since you want to attack prospective Black students, why can't we sue? Why can't we point out a few things? Is that a method to this madness?
That would be the only method. Well, there are some states, about 9 across the country, that do not use affirmative action tactics in order to help people get into college. California, Idaho was recently just added. I believe that Florida is one of those people where they don't use race as a factor in their colleges or university. But the key to it would be to fight them the same way that, as you said, they are doing. Fight them legally. I mean, even Joe Biden and his administration stepped in and said, hey, Supreme Court, do not take this up. You have no business touching this. But the truth about it is that even once you go through the channels, the people on the Supreme Court, at least 4 of them, have to say, come on into the Supreme Court and we'll help you decide this case. Or they can tell you, you know what, not time for you, so we don't want to hear it. So even if we make the journey, we don't know if the Supreme Court will say, yes, our doors are open to you and we'll take up the case. What we do know now is the 6-3 conservative majority knows that this is law that has been on the books for years, and now they're saying, come on in, because they want to change it, and that is the reason why they've opened their doors.
Brittney, there's something I heard yesterday, and before we take a quick break, I'm wondering if you could help me, because it made me want to go back to bed. I was watching a show, those ladies with differing opinions who like to just kind of go at it. And one of the ladies pointed to a study and she said, listen, every group, this poll was taken, and every group wants to just be judged on their merits. Even Black people are saying this. It was within the greater context of this Supreme Court case. And I wonder what you would say to white Americans who would pose the question and say to a Black student, do you want to get in because of affirmative action, or do you want to get in because you were good enough?
Well, what I would say to that student is that both things can be true. I am a proud recipient of affirmative action programs, which aren't just about college admissions. Like Ameshia, I scored well on tests, so that wasn't the problem. The problem is that my mother wasn't a problem, but I grew up in a single parent home. I grew up as a low income student. So that meant that some of these elite programs, being able to hire tutors to help you do better on tests, all of that kind of stuff, those were not barriers that my white classmates had. The thing that bothers me, whether I'm talking to my college students or my consulting clients at the highest levels of corporate America, is that they assume that diversity and merit are in competition, and that the more diverse we become, the less meritorious our institutions are. And conversely, that means that what they're doing is associating whiteness with merit and saying that we know that these are quality places because you more white people in them. And that means that the other thing I would ask white people is, are you saying that diversity is optional? Are you saying that you care more about the ways in which your white privilege has allowed your student to do better on a test that is culturally biased towards their experience? Or do you actually want us to live in a world that is more democratic? And unfortunately, what the Supreme Court is doing is saying that they care more about shoring up white people's view of the American dream, that they got there because they earned it, and that the rest of us aren't in those rooms because we didn't work hard enough. And so Black people have to stop conceding the basis of the arguments they're making, because all of it is a disinformation campaign. We work harder than anybody. But last point, one of the reasons we haven't sued anybody is because so much of this is about the battle of elites. Many of our folks are going to the community college down the street. They're going to for-profit colleges that offer them better options. And so our folks aren't suing for the right to get into Harvard, because we're still trying to figure out, in many cases, how to just get our kids from high school into some kind of higher education program that's going to give them a shot. And so we've got to have a more expansive conversation about this. And so the other thing is, I say to my students, you haven't grown up in a world where racial preferences actually limit your ability to get into school. To Candace's point, when you look around the room, I don't have a bunch of Black students in my class. So it's just moral panic on the part of the right and not actually the facts about what's going on. And so we've got to keep fighting, and we've got to stop this shame. And when I got into the room, what I told people is, I might have used some affirmative action to get here, but you can tell that I deserve to be here because I'm one of the baddest chicks in the spot, and we've got to raise our kids with that confidence.
If all that could fit on a t-shirt, and that's why I just teed it right up for you. I have never been more pleased for the pushback. We are going to take a quick break. The ladies and I will be back in just 3 minutes with more Sharon's Table. That part right there, that part. And that is why you're here, sis, and I love it.
You're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead.
I
think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people.
I was asking a question sarcastically to reporters like you, just to see what would happen. But I was asking a very sarcastic question to the reporters in the room about disinfectant on the inside. But it does kill it, and it would kill it on the hands, and that would make things much better. That was done in the form of a sarcastic question to the reporters.
Said many times that the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why is this a global competition to you if everyday Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world, and maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay?
Sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you, I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead. Now the poor guy, you gotta see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. Oh, I don't remember.
So that's just a reminder, 45, lived in the verbal gutter, the entire presidency, the campaign leading up to that presidency. Now let's play President Biden earlier this week.
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
You know, I've seen it on social media, and perhaps I've heard it, maybe in my own head, where's the lie? But he apologized, Ameshia. President Biden called the reporter from Fox who had been saying nasty things, and I don't even know if that question would apply, and he apologized for losing it. And I got a question about whether he actually did lose it. But talk to me about the difference. Trump, the Democrats, too nice?
Democrats have been playing it way too nice. I think that we are very hard pressed to compare Donald Trump's relationship with the press to Joe Biden's. First and foremost, Donald Trump did not care about the press. He called them basically the enemy of the people. He basically asserted to his audience that they should beat them, they should bully them. And he quite frankly utilized the bully pulpit to attack them any chance he got, particularly Black journalists. But we also saw in him someone who was heralded by his base, the more, repugnant he got in his commentary towards the press. With Joe Biden, in a comment that was said under his breath. Mind you, he did not direct this particularly to the Fox News reporter who consistently asked dumb questions. There are rollbacks of tapes where John McCain also basically called him a stupid idiot and dumb for asking some of the questions that he did that were completely out of line. But I think that what we see here is the Joe Biden we always had. He's compassionate, he understands the relationship with the press, and he did not really appreciate the feedback loop that came from those comments that I don't honestly think that he knew were actually picked up by the hot mic at the time. That's something that Donald Trump would never do. Again, bombastic, ridiculous, had no respect for the press or anybody else, and made very insidious comments, even threatened press officials, and never apologized a single time.
So, but Candace, if someone is rude to you every day, should you continue to extend kindness? Does the office of the presidency of the United States demand it? Do you think he must call and apologize or continue with the New World Order after 45? Just shrug it off.
Listen, I've got a little post-traumatic stress from seeing those videos about Trump. Oh my goodness. Do you
I'm
remember?
sorry.
Listen, Biden knew that mic was on. I don't know who anybody's trying
Thank
to.
you.
He had to have known it was on. He's been doing this for decades. He knew the mic was on. He knew somebody was hearing, and I think that he was trying to just kind of on the low give a little burst of energy that Ameshia was talking about in terms of Democrats being a little bit too nice and faking like it was a mistake. I think people need to see a little bit more of that energy, not necessarily in that way. You don't have to want to apologize for something that you've said, but in terms of being plain and saying what's on your mind without being rude with these midterm elections coming up, we need a little bit of that because you know what? Everybody's talking about it now. What if he said something that had a little more power and content, meat on the bone, and we were talking about that? We're not, because the Democrats are playing a game and losing when it comes to media, how they're liked, and his approval in the polls. Unfortunately, this is where we are. People live in a society where we respond to mean comments. We respond to people who say things that are not true. If he could stay the line but keep that same energy, he would get a lot more attention. And attention was needed on this particular issue, too. Inflation. That's what everybody's talking about because the rates are going up. We need to see a little bit more of that side of Joe, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Brittney, how about a little Cardi B? She fought back, didn't she? Didn't she fight back? And $4 million later, she gonna show you who's boss. So I wonder what your take is on this. It does seem like the Biden administration, the Democrats, they're playing kindergarten teacher games while everybody else is Cardi B.
I mean, listen, I think that I'm here for it. I think we got to have some honest discourse. That's why people like Joe Biden, because he's not super polished. This is a man who always put his foot in his mouth, sometimes to greater or lesser degrees of success. I'm all about it. And I think that Candace is absolutely right that this is the thing to help energize Democrats to know that we understand that what we're enduring from the right is some BS, and that quite frankly, our sort of political discourse will be better and more refreshing if at some point we just said, actually, that's dumb. Actually, that's stupid. And I think, look, part of the other reason we deserve it is because remember when Barack Obama called the cop that arrested Professor Henry Louis Gates? He said, well, this is just stupid.
Yes.
And there was all of this outrage, right? And so that might be why Democrats are more tentative. But now the time is off for tentative. We're in the post-Trump era. And as you said, we just got to keep it real. And I think people want that.
Ameshia, will we ever go back? Can we ever go back to life before Trump, or is Brittney right? Do we need to just go ahead and keep it all the way real?
I think we have to keep it all the way real, and not just because of the post-Trump era, but because something happened in America. Something happened in the American psyche that wants to see this bombastic push back and forth. They want to see a fight. And in many cases, that fight is very different from what we've seen historically politically. The gloves are off. There is no holds barred. And to be honest, I think members of both sides of the political spectrum actually enjoy seeing a little bit of fighting in the mud in a way that we couldn't have even imagined 30, 40 years ago. That's just where we are as a public. And I think that the Democratic Party will behoove them to learn that instead of always looking like the weaklings in a wrestling match.
When Brittney said, that's dumb, for some reason, you remember Antoine Dodson, who was the meme? You are so dumb. That's just rolling back and forth in my head. But I love it. I love you ladies. I live for this. I live for this table. Brittney Cooper, Ameshia Cross, Candace Kelley, As always, thank you for your insight. Thank you for keeping it real.